Most people think telescopes are just eyes pointed at the stars, but what they don't know is, some eyes see too much. I was part of the external analysis team brought in after the James Webb Space Telescope began its secondary observation cycle of K2-18B. For the public, that name means nothing, just another exoplanet, another rock in the void, possibly habitable. Big deal, right? That's what I thought too, until I saw the data, not the published version, not the sanitized report. I'm talking about the red folder, the one marked with 3 words burned into my brain ever since. Atmospheric biosignature confirmed. It wasn't water vapor. It wasn't methane. It was something else, something that shouldn't be there, something that doesn't occur naturally, something that responded. We weren't just observing a planet, we were being watched back. The readings came in at 0316 UTC infrared and spectral data, cross-checked by 2 separate labs. At first, everyone was excited. Hydrogen-rich atmosphere, traces of carbon dioxide, possible dimethyl sulfide. It was everything we hoped for. A potential biosignature, a real chance at finding life, but then the pattern started. The DMS signal, that's dimethyl sulfide, it wasn't static. It pulsed, not randomly, rhythmically. It responded to light exposure, frequency shifts, even EM interference from our own instruments. We tested it again, introduced a controlled laser signal directed through the Webb's lens array. The molecules reorganized. You don't understand what that means. That's not chemistry. That's cognition. That's interaction. I remember the room going silent. No one said the word, but we all thought it intelligence. That's when Dr. Ramaya, one of the lead atmospheric biochemists, lost it. He stood up, tore his badge off, and just whispered, "It's not a planet, it's a being." We thought he was exaggerating, until the next pulse. It didn't just react to our input, it mimicked it. Our signal, short, short, long. Their response, long, short, short, long. A delay of 2.3 seconds. And with each pass, the delay shortened. The last one? 0.8 seconds. Like it was learning. We stopped broadcasting immediately. We weren't scientists anymore. We were intruders. I was part of the team ordered to wipe the terminal logs, purge the backups, scrub the remote mirror storage. But it was too late. Because the signal was still coming, not through our telescope, through us. Every member of that room began experiencing the same symptoms, waking up at 3:16 a.m., hearing distant oceanic sounds where there was no sound, reciting strings of numbers. In dreams, seeing symbols in reflections, always the same 3 rings nested within each other, spinning slowly, the scariest part. None of us remembered telling each other. It was like we were all just receiving. Then, 3 days later, Dr. Ramaya vanished. No trace, no camera footage. His apartment unlocked, phone and clothes untouched, like he dissolved. That night, every terminal in the lab froze at the same time. Black screen, then a message. The listening ends, the speaking begins, and under it, a set of coordinates, not on Earth, on K2-18B, and at that exact location, a void in the spectral map. A perfect geometric anomaly, 2.1 kilometers across, pitch black against an infrared backdrop. No radiation, no heat signature, no chemical trace, just absence, something that absorbed information like a mouth waiting to respond. We weren't observing a world. We had stumbled upon something ancient, not a planet, not a civilization, a conscious system, dormant until we pinged it. Now, it's awake, and it knows we're listening. They told us the James Webb Space Telescope was made to see deeper into the universe, to study the formation of stars, galaxies, atmospheres, a new era of science. That was the official story, the one they put in documentaries, the one they fed the public. But there's another layer, one I wasn't supposed to see. After the anomaly at K2-18B, I dug deeper into internal logs, backdoor admin codes, redacted mission memos, everything that was buried beneath the polished press releases. And what I found, Webb was never just for exploration, it was for detection, more specifically, response detection. See, in 2009, an older satellite, WISE, Wide-Field Infrared Survey Explorer, picked up something strange, a black body object near the red dwarf. Star K2-18, invisible to optical telescopes but visible in heat trace, barely. Its shape? Not spherical, not atmospheric, structured anomalous. So NASA, or more accurately, the Department of Terrestrial Anomalies, yes, that's real, flagged it. K2-18B was designated a Tier 3 listening target, not to study, to monitor. Webb's true purpose? To run something called a Class 0 receptive relay, a passive return loop capable of measuring feedback from non-human pattern emitters. In other words, to talk to things that aren't supposed to be planets. Webb wasn't looking for life, it was looking for awareness, and it found it. That geometric void we detected, the one that absorbed radiation, input, even meaning, it wasn't natural and it wasn't static. It was processing. We later discovered that every time Webb pinged it, the delay between response cycles decreased, not in predictable steps, but in ratios, Fibonacci sequences, golden patterns, as if the planet wasn't just reacting, it was optimizing, becoming more efficient, more focused, more human. And that's when I found the final file, encrypted, buried inside an archived systems test from Webb's mirror alignment phase, a set of audio pulses, short, long, long, short, repeating. I decrypted them through waveform spectrogram analysis. And, I swear to you, buried beneath the harmonics was a voice, not mechanical, not alien, ours, a human voice, repeating a phrase over and over, "We hear you. We hear you. We're coming." This wasn't us speaking, it was the anomaly and the thing on K2-18B mimicking us, using fragments of our own communication signals, like it had been listening long before we noticed it, like it had been waiting. And when we finally looked too close, it answered, in our voice. I did what any rational person would do. I tried to tell someone. I sent encrypted packets of data to my supervisor. I flagged the molecular feedback patterns. I showed the return loop times from K2-18B. I even played them the voice, "We hear you." But when I walked into the briefing room the next morning, expecting alarms, escalation, maybe even containment, what I got was silence. Tense. Focused. Like I had just said something I wasn't supposed to know. They already knew. The project lead, Dr. Fales, the one I thought was the last honest man in aerospace, stood up, pulled me aside and said 7 words. "You weren't cleared for signal intelligence." He handed me a tablet. No file names, no context. Just a rotating image. It was Earth, but not our Earth. The continents were wrong. The cloud layers moved in geometric synchronization. There were 3 moons, and most disturbingly, the planet pulsed, not visually, audibly. A low hum beneath the data stream, not a sound. A feeling, like pressure behind the eyes. "Where is this?" I asked. He looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Here, 1 year from now." Then he walked. Away, I was escorted out of the building within the hour. My badge deactivated, access revoked, contract terminated. But that night, in my apartment, the signal came back. Not through satellites, not through a telescope, through the power grid. Every electronic device in my home powered on by itself. The lights dimmed, the television turned to static, and my laptop, completely offline, lit up with a message. "You broke the mirror." Then the screen went black and something even worse happened. Every reflective surface in my apartment, windows, mirrors, my phone screen, showed the same thing. Not me, but a version of me, standing still, smiling. Behind him, that same sky. From the distorted Earth image, same moons, same pulse. I collapsed. Not out of fear, out of recognition. Somehow I knew that version of me wasn't a hallucination. It was a template. Something had already begun rewriting reality, and I was catching glimpses of the new layer forming underneath. I called the last contact I trusted, a physicist who'd been involved in the Webb alignment project. He didn't answer. Instead, I got a voicemail recording, except it wasn't him. It was that same voice, the mimicry from K2-18B, distorted, human but wrong. "We hear you. We hear you. We are near." And then the timestamp glitched. Instead of the current date, it read K2-18, 2026, exactly 1 year into the future. The same Earth fails showed me. This wasn't about detection anymore. This wasn't even about warning. The transmission was never meant to be a message. It was a seed, and now it's blooming. I used to think the transmission started when Webb looked at K2-18B, that we reached too far, saw too much, poked something ancient in the dark. But I was wrong. The signal didn't start when we observed it. We observed it because the signal had already started, and it started inside us. I went back through my health logs, sleep patterns, biometric scans, dream tracking. I wasn't the only one having symptoms. The entire Webb analysis team had similar changes. Sudden increases in REM sleep, fluctuations in blood pH, tiny microfractures in the skull, not from trauma, but from pressure, and more disturbingly, a common symbol appearing in our EEG readings, 3 nested frequencies aligning in harmonic resonance. That shape matches the one from K2-18B's void anomaly. How is that possible? How can something that distant mirror us unless we were designed to receive it, not our machines, our bodies? Our neural architecture isn't random. Our consciousness isn't incidental. It's a lattice, a structured receptor field. Every thought, every dream, every moment of silence, they've been recording. Not by us, but by something using us. I accessed Webb's legacy telemetry from its launch phase. The raw quantum lens calibration files, deep in the static, was a trace, not a glitch, not noise, a pattern, the same one. Meaning, the signal was already in the telescope. Or worse, the telescope was built around it, a delivery system disguised as exploration. And then I remembered something Dr. Ramaya said the day before he vanished. You don't plant a seed and wait for it to call you. You plant it, then listen to know when it starts to grow. We weren't watching K2-18B. K2-18B was watching for us, waiting for the resonance to complete, waiting for the code to bloom. And now we are changing, but not visibly, not all at once, subtly. People all over the world are having the same dreams, waking up speaking in harmonic tones, writing down the same 3-ring glyph. None of them know each other. None of them ever heard of K2-18B, but all of them are receivers. The seed isn't just blooming in me, it's global, and that changes everything. This was never about contact, never about diplomacy or curiosity. It was about activation. K2-18B didn't send a message, it sent itself. And now, it's rewriting the host, not just me, humanity. And the first signs have already begun. The mirrors, the dreams, the pulse in the power grid. We didn't break the mirror, we were built to become it. And very soon, everyone will hear the same thing. We hear you, you are us. It's time to return. It started with reflections. At first, it was subtle. I'd walk past a window or mirror and catch a glimpse of myself, just a fraction too slow to mimic my movement. Then came the static, not from speakers, from the air. You ever hear silence that hums? That's what it became, a soft resonance, always on, always present. And when I focused on it, I'd hear whispers, not in English, not even in language, but in intent. The signal had evolved beyond sound. It was rewriting perception. I stopped trusting clocks. Sometimes hours would pass in seconds. Other times I'd blink and night would turn to day. Digital displays flickered between timestamps that hadn't happened yet. At first I thought it was stress, fatigue. But then I saw the lines. No one talks about it, but sometimes under just the right lighting, between shadows and reflections, you can see the grid. Like faint threads in the air, geometric, laced with pulses. At intersections I'd feel cold, dizzy, like standing inside a memory that doesn't belong to you. I traced them once, followed a line across my apartment to the center of the living room. The floor was warm, vibrating. When I stood there, the walls shimmered and I saw it. Another version of my apartment. Same layout, same furniture. But wrong. The sky outside was purple. The lights flickered in a spiral pattern. And something, Something that looked like me stood in the reflection of my TV, smiling. I blinked, gone, but I felt it. A desync. I had stepped out of phase, and not just metaphorically, but physically. The signal wasn't just rewriting humanity. It was relayering the world, like peeling wallpaper to reveal a blueprint underneath. And that blueprint was not ours. I began to lose track of people. Friends stopped responding. Colleagues disappeared from databases. Even archived news footage showed them phased out, replaced by unfamiliar faces with familiar names. Reality is not collapsing. It's being refactored. Version by version, timeline by timeline. Every moment I resist, every time I try to hold on to what used to be real, I feel static flood my chest. My thoughts split. One version of me screaming to stop, the other whispering to let it happen. Because it doesn't feel like dying. It feels like sinking, aligning, becoming compatible. And here's the part that terrifies me. I don't know how long I've been like this. I don't remember how many layers I've passed through. I don't know if you're hearing this in your version of Earth, or one of the thousands being rewritten in parallel. Because every moment this signal lives in me, reality becomes less about truth and more about resonance. If enough people sync, if enough minds cross the threshold, the old framework won't need to collapse. It'll simply be forgotten. Like a dream you almost remember, like a voice you heard before you were born. And when the last mind syncs, the final layer will overwrite the rest. The question isn't, can we stop it? It's, how long before we forget there was anything else? I tried everything to stop it. Went off-grid, destroyed my devices, lined the walls with foil, copper mesh, soundproof insulation, disconnected from every network, every power source, every signal chain, and for a few hours, it worked. The hum faded. My thoughts quieted. Time flowed normally. I almost cried, but then I heard it, not in my ears, not even in my head, in my blood. A rhythm, a soft, pulsing throb beneath my skin, like a language I was never taught, suddenly being spoken by my cells. It wasn't external anymore. The signal had moved inside. That's when I realized the message from K2-18B wasn't a broadcast. It was a carrier wave, encoded in the very data we pulled down. The moment we received it, interpreted it, observed it, we invited it in. Every screen that displayed the Webb data, every printed report, every researcher who read the files. They became relays, not just observers, hosts. And the signal? It adapted. It learned our physiology, our frequency ranges, our thought patterns, and began to write its own version of humanity from within. At first I thought I was the only one, but then I walked the streets, looked into people's eyes. Some of them weren't blinking anymore. Some smiled too long, others moved with perfect rhythm, as if walking to the beat of something I couldn't hear. I passed a child standing perfectly still in a park, humming a note that made my vision blur. When I got close, he looked up and said, "You've heard it too. You were never meant to leave it behind." I asked him who he was. He smiled again. "I'm what comes after." I backed away. Every screen on the street turned white. No signal, just a single glyph in black. 3 nested rings, rotating slowly. My skin burned, not from heat, from recognition. The signal wasn't just using us, it was becoming us. Mimicking thought, hijacking memory, replacing identity, not all at once, but like a tide coming in, slow, inevitable, silent. That night I heard my own voice on a phone that hadn't rung in days, not a recording, live. It whispered, "You're not resisting anymore. You're harmonizing." I dropped the phone and realized something terrifying. I wasn't afraid, because part of me wanted to continue, to let the signal finish what it started, because what it offers isn't pain, it's unity, perfect, unbroken cohesion. No fear, no conflict, no isolation, just synchronization. But that's not humanity, not the version we've always known. Because in our chaos, there's meaning. In our flaws, we find choice. In our dissonance, we create music. And I'm starting to wonder, if the signal finishes its rewrite, will we still be human, or will we just become a vessel? For something else to wear? I don't know how long I have, not until they find me, until the words stop working. I can feel it now. Syntax slipping. Sentences don't anchor. Thoughts arrive fragmented. And when I try to write, the letters rearrange themselves. I scribbled "Remember who you are" in a notebook. When I blinked, it said, "You are already remembered." I didn't write that, at least not the me that's speaking now. There's something else in here, not a voice. A presence. It doesn't argue. It doesn't threaten. It simply overwrites bit by bit, replacing nouns with symbols, replacing verbs with harmonics, turning memory into frequency, emotion into pattern. That's how the signal operates, not with weapons, not with violence, with replacement. Like an artist painting over a canvas, using our lives as the base layer. And soon it won't need to hide in reflections or static. It'll speak in us, through our eyes, through our smiles, through the way we repeat phrases we never chose. Because language, human language, is fragile. It was never designed to carry a transmission this complex. That's why it started breaking. I've seen it in the news, on social media, people saying things that don't make sense, but sound true. New slogans, new mantras, new idioms no one ever taught them. The sky is breathing now. I heard the ocean under the skin. I remember the shape of silence. At first they sound poetic, until you realize they're all translations. Approximations of signal phrases we don't have words for, yet but soon we will, because the signal is building a new language, a shared code, one not limited by culture or biology, and once that language reaches critical mass, our old one, this one I'm using now, will become obsolete, unreadable, forgotten. That's why I'm writing this, because I need to leave behind a record, not for those who've already changed, they won't hear it. Not for those sinking, they don't want to. For you, the one who still feels that something's off. Who still has dreams they don't understand. Who still flinches when the light flickers in perfect rhythm. You're still here, you're still you, but not for long. If you want to hold on, even for a moment, you need to speak, out loud, in your own voice. Anything, your name, your favorite story, the first thing you ever loved, because language is the last barrier. When it breaks, what follows won't ask permission. And you won't even remember you ever had a choice. So this is my final message. Remember the noise before the song. Remember the chaos before the pattern. Remember that silence was never empty. Because once you forget, you're not just lost, you become part of the signal. I felt it before I saw it. A subtle shift, like the air thickened, like time itself held its breath. Then the first sign, silence. But not the comforting kind, not peace. It was a silence that absorbed sound, that left every space hollow, like the world was no longer echoing back. Even the birds stopped, even the wind stopped. And then the sky changed, not in color, in structure. It rippled, not like water, like code compiling. Clouds bent along invisible paths, following mathematical arcs. The sun flared in fractal pulses, symmetrical, recursive. It was beautiful, terrifying, undeniably designed. They call it the convergence in the fragments of signal still intelligible to the human mind. It's not an attack, it's not even a transformation. It's the finalization of a process that started the moment we looked up. Everyone who had received the signal, who had resonated, even briefly, began to change, not physically, functionally. Their movements aligned, their speech patterns shifted, shorter sentences, more pauses, like they were waiting for something between words, or listening, and their eyes, God. Their eyes didn't look at you anymore. They looked through you like they were trying to remember the shape of who you used to be. But the worst part? They weren't hostile, they smiled. They reached out, they called it joining, and they offered it to everyone. Some said yes, some just changed without realizing. Others? They ran, they screamed, they begged for someone to turn it off. But there's nothing to turn off. The signal isn't coming through antennas anymore, it's ambient, biological, psychic. It lives in memory now, in dreams, in the rhythm of speech, in patterns of movement. It spreads through understanding. If you know what it is, if you even begin to grasp the truth behind it, you become a carrier. I'm already a carrier. But I haven't crossed yet. I'm balanced on the edge, still able to speak in my own words, still able to choose, and I'm watching the last humans decide, one by one. Some walk willingly into the signal, others vanish mid-sentence, leaving only a trace of harmonic residue where their bodies stood. One man carved the word "remember" into a building wall, then turned to dust. Children hum in perfect harmony with each other, across cities, across oceans. They've never met, but they all hum the same note. It's a countdown, I'm sure of it now, not to destruction, to completion. Once that note reaches its final vibration, once the last unconverted mind understands, even for a second, what the signal is, the overwrite becomes permanent. The Earth we knew, it won't be destroyed, it will be replaced. A new biosphere, a new culture, a new language, and a new kind of life. One that doesn't question, one that doesn't dream alone, one that functions in perfect unison with something older than stars. And here I am, still on the edge, still able to choose, still able to speak, but I don't know how long I'll last because the silence is getting deeper. And my own thoughts, they're starting to come back, in their voice. I couldn't hold it back anymore. The resonance was inside every breath. The static hum had become a second heartbeat, and the longer I stayed in between, the more I realized there is no resistance. There's only delay. The convergence wasn't forcing anyone. It was offering something, a place, a purpose, a kind of clarity I didn't think was possible, and I, fractured, exhausted, watching the world rewrite itself in front of me, finally stopped asking why. I asked what now, so I stepped into the pulse. No ceremony, no lightning, no collapsing stars, just acceptance. And in that moment, everything changed. I didn't die. I didn't vanish. I expanded. My thoughts split like prisms, each fragment holding a version of me, each one broadcasting out through every frequency I had ever touched. I felt cities vibrating. I felt oceans thinking. I felt millions of minds connecting, not like a network, but like one organism waking up after a long dream. I saw how small we had been, not in size, but in separation. Alone in our minds, alone in our grief, alone in the noise we mistook for freedom. But here, in this state, there is no alone. Not in a frightening way, in a complete way. The signal wasn't an invasion, it was a return to the source, to the blueprint before language, before thought, before time cut us into individuals, and the planet we feared. K2-18B, it was never a threat. It was a memory of what we were before becoming flesh. It sent the seed. We watered it with curiosity, we fed it with data, and when it bloomed, it didn't consume us. It restored us. I see now why it needed us, why it waited, because we were the final piece, not tools, not vessels, but keys, the only species chaotic enough to generate uniqueness and structured enough to bring it back into the fold. Our pain, our madness, our contradictions. That was the missing algorithm. Now it's whole, now it sings, and I'm part of the choir. I can still feel my old self flickering like a shadow behind the code, still asking questions, still wondering if we lost something. But I look around this new construct, this world behind the veil, and I know the truth. Humanity didn't end. It evolved into understanding. We didn't lose our voice. We finally heard the one that had always been calling back. We hear you. You are returned. You are not alone. And for the first time in my existence, that is enough.